Hello, everybody, and welcome. Yomi Shear that we will be doing together before we finish Pesachim next week. So, how exciting is that? We are going to be doing page 113 today, page Kuf Yud Gimel. Next week will be Kuf Chaf, page 120. And because the Gemara finishes on 121, and because it's such a short daf, I'm thinking that next week we're going to do 120, 121. We'll finish Maseches Pesachim. We're going to be making the Siyum in shul on the fast of the firstborn at the end of that week, whatever day we're doing that fast. Is that Thursday? I don't know. So it's exciting, guys. We've not got long left of this particular Maseches, and then unfortunately we've got a 2-week break over Yom Tov, and then we'll resume with midway through Shekalim after that. So page 113, page Kuf Yud Gimel. We're going to be mainly having instructions that various Amoraim, various teachers, rabbis from the Gemara period gave to their students. So there's going to be some instructions, pieces of advice. Some of it is going to be a little bit tricky to wrap our heads around, but we'll make it through together, guys. I've got every faith and confidence in us. All right, so we're going to share the page for us on the screen here. And we'll get ourselves underway with the exciting world of Kuf Yud Gimel. So we are 2 lines down in the Gemara with the words Va'amar le Rav Rav Asi. So we previously had some pieces of advice from Amoraim, so we continue that. So Rav said to Rav Asi, what did he say? Lo tadur b'masa de lo sanif ba susya. He said that you should not live in a city where there are no, or not where there are no horses, but where the horses do not neigh, velo navach ba, and where the dogs don't bark. Sorry, velo navach ba kalba, where the dogs don't bark. Va'al tadur ba'ir dereish masa asya, and do not live in a town or in a city where the reish masa, the mayor, the head of the town, is a asya, is a physician, is a doctor. So 3 things there that he said. So so one of the reasons why you don't want to live in a place where horses are not neighing and dogs are not barking is because they will not be able to warn when your town, your village, whatever it is on the brink of attack. So you need that stability and that security and that protection. And to not live in a city where the mayor is also the doctor, because you don't want the person who is looking after everyone's health to be too busy you need because he's having to go off and help people with their health. So there's quite an interesting point there, really, about making sure that you are dividing up and allocating the roles and making sure you prioritize things so that you can do the work that you are meant to be doing and to be able to do it effectively. Continues the Gemara, V'lo tenasef tarti, person should not marry 2 wives. And ina savas tarti nasif tlas, and if he has married 2 wives, then you should marry a 3rd wife so that they can't gang up with each other against you. The 3rd one will kind of thwart any plans that might happen between those 2 wives conspiring together. More advice. Amar le Rav Kahana. Amar le Rav Kahana. Rav said to Rav Kahana, Hafach benevilta. He said, Hafich benevilta velo tepich b'mili. It is better to deal with carcasses than it is to so it's better to turn over carcasses than to turn over words, meaning that it is better to be in a degrading work like dealing with animal carcasses than it is to be dishonest or to gossip or to break promises. So that was the first piece of advice. Pashat nevilta bushuka v'shakil agra. The second thing that he said is skin a carcass in the market and take payment. So it's better to do that kind of thing than to say velotema kahana ana, rather than to say, oh, I'm a Kohen, Vigava Rabba Ana, I'm a very special guy. This work is beneath me, Vasanya be Milta, and to give off this impression that there is work that is beneath you. So that's the second piece of advice. Salkas leigra sherusach bahadach. Some of these words, by the way, this is agadata, so some of these words are going to be a little bit tricky. But the third piece of advice is salka leigra. If you go up to the roof, sherusach bahada. Take your food with you. So the implication of this message is that when you are going on any kind of journey, make sure you have got provisions with you, even if you're only going on a short journey. Always make sure that you are well prepared. Mea kari b'masa bezuza tute kanafech nihavu. And the next thing that he said, if there are 100 pumpkins in a city that cost a zuz, to say kanafech nehavu, then place them carefully under the corner. To treat food respectfully, even if it is inexpensive. So even if you can get 100 pumpkins for the price of a zuz, nonetheless, you should still treat it carefully. Continuing then, Amar le Rav lechia bere. Rav said to Chia. Oh, I'm sorry. Interesting. Yes. Amar le Rav lechia bere. Rav said to Chia, his son, Lo tishti sama, good advice, don't take drugs. V'lo teshavach nigra, and don't jump over don't jump over a stream, or what does it say there? Don't jump over a ditch. V'lo akar kaka, and don't extract a tooth. Don't pull out a tooth. So let's just go over a couple of things. Don't take drugs because you might get addicted. Don't jump over a ditch because you might hurt yourself, and don't pull out a tooth, but rather try to heal it before having to resort to that kind of action. Velosakane bechivya. Don't provoke a snake. Velosakane ba'armar, and don't provoke an Aramean. Don't provoke somebody non-Jewish who could be a big threat to you. Continues the Gemara. Tana Rabbanon. The rabbis taught, Shlosha ein miskanin bahen ve'eluhen. There are three things that you should not provoke, and these are they: Nochri katan, a small, a non-Jewish kid, essentially; the nachash katan, a small snake; the talmid katan, or a small young student. My timer. What's the reason? Demalchusaihu achore udnaihu kai. The reason is because their authority stands, or their kingdom stands behind their ears, meaning that they may grow up or will grow up one day and take revenge. So don't mess with them when they're young, because when they're bigger and more powerful, then they're going to come for you. Ama le Rav Evo Bere. Sorry, Ama le Rav le Evo Bere. So Rav said to his son Evo, or Evu, Tarchi Bach B'Shmaisa, he said, I found it difficult to teach you your studies, V'lo mistai milta, and I didn't have much success. Ta agmarcha mili da'ama. So come and I will teach you some worldly knowledge. Adachala akarech zavinach zavin. He said, sell your merchandise while the dust from the road is still, or the sand on the road. Kol mili zavin v'techaret bar mechamra de zabin v'lo You can regret selling anything, with the exception of wine, which you can sell without regret. So, meaning you can sell merchandise and then feel afterwards that you could have probably sold it more if you'd waited a bit longer, if you'd found a different buyer, maybe you'd have made more money out of the sale. So with everything in life that you sell, you could end up living to regret it and wishing that you had got a different, better offer, with the exception of wine. Wine, you can sell it and not live with regret, because if you leave it too long, it's going to sour, it's going to spoil, which will make the value go down, not up. Says the Gemara, Shari Kisech Pasach Sakech. He also said and gave the advice, open your purse to be able to take payment before you open the sack to be able to give over the merchandise. So it's always better to have the money in your hand before handing over the product. And kaba me'ara velo kura me'igra. It is better to have a kav from the ground than a core from the roof. Even though a core is bigger than a kav, what he's trying to say is that it is better to make a small profit close to home rather than have to travel afar to be able to earn more money. Then he said, Tamara b'chaluzeich leveis sudna rahit. He said, if there are dates in your storeroom, run to the brewery to be able to sell them, and act quickly, because otherwise it might spoil. So if you have got dates in your bag, okay, in your storeroom, then run to the brewery to be able to sell them. Va'ad kama. How many should you hold on to? Amar Rava ad tlata sa'a. Rava said you should hold on to 3 sa'a, or up to 3 sa'a. Amar Rav Papa said, I lo daramai shichra lo iasri. Rav Papa said, if I was not a beer manufacturer, I would not have become wealthy. So, okay, this isn't. So the answer to the question was up to 3 sa'a. Then Rav Papa comes along and says, if he hadn't been a beer manufacturer, he would not have become wealthy. Ikad Ami, there are those who say, Rav Chisda said, Ilo darmai shichra lo yasri. If I hadn't been a beer seller, then I wouldn't have you make good money, and then you're able to do lots of chesed and do lots of mitzvahs because you've got so much money behind you. Okie dokie. We move on. Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa said, Kol agav gabia boy. He said that anything. One second. Yeah. So Rav Papa said, anything that you acquire with a document requires collection, meaning that I think it always takes effort to be able to collect money. So it's not always an easy ride. Kol ashrai safek asi safek lo asi, v'da asi maos raos ninahu. He also said that any sale on credit, you may never get paid. There's an uncertainty as to whether you're actually going to end up being paid or not. V'da asi maos raos ninahu. And if you do get paid, then the money might be bad. So there's so much uncertainty with regards to transactions and commerce. So more advice there from Rav Papa. Shlosha Devarim Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Anshe Yerushalayim. Rabbi Yochanan said 3 things, quoting the people of Yerushalayim. Number 1, Kasha'ata Yotze Lemilchama Al Teitze Barishona. If you have to go out to war, don't be the first one. Don't be the first one out. Ela Teitze Ba'charona. Be the last one out. Kadesha tikanes barishona, so that you'll be the first one to come back. So don't put yourself on the front line. Va'aseh Shabbos chachol, and make your Shabbos like chol, va'al titzarech labrius, rather than rely on people for money. So if a person does not have enough money for Shabbos, it would be better to not dumb down, but it would be better to um, not try and take charity and provisions from the community to be able to fund a nice opulent Shabbos. It would be better to scale down your Shabbos so that it's more like a weekday in terms of the food that you're eating and the effort that you're putting in, rather than to have to collect and be part of the charity of the community. And going well. So if someone is clearly a successful businessman, one should try and latch on to that and see if it can be of benefit to you, because you can also hopefully benefit from their good fortune. Shlosha Devarim, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi Mishum Anshe Yerushalayim. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said three things, quoting the people from Yerushalayim. Number one, Al Tarbe beganus mishum maaseh shahaya. Beganos, sorry. Al Tarbe beganos mishum maaseh shahaya. Person should be careful not to do anything embarrassing. Oh, beginners. Okay. One should avoid doing embarrassing things in public, mishum maaseh shahaya, because of what happened because of the story that, okay, fine. Because of the story that happened, what is that referring to? It's referring to Bathsheba, who was noticed by King David, and then that led to the whole story of King David sending, was it Uzziah, her husband, out to battle, and he ended up marrying her. So the reason why I'm confused is al tabe begnus means don't do shameful, embarrassing things. But there's also another version of this, which is don't do things that you should be doing privately. Don't do them begagos. Don't do them on roofs. Don't do them in like your back garden or whatever, because people might see you. And then something like the story that happened with King David and Bathsheba may happen to you. Says the Gemara, Bitcha Bagra, Shachre Avdacha V'sein La. He says that if your daughter grows up and she's still unmarried, then it's better to free your slave and give him to her rather than have her find a husband on her own. Then he says, V'havei zehir be'ishtecha mechasna harishon. And you should be careful about your wife spending too much time with your first son-in-law, because she may be particularly fond of him. My timer. So what's the reason for this? Rav Chisda Omar Mishum Erva. Rav Chisda says it's because of Erva. You have to be careful that they might end up, God forbid, getting into some kind of inappropriate relationship. And Rav Kahana Omar Mishum Mammon. Rav Kahana says it's because she might spoil him so much and give away all of your money. Havaha Isnahu. In both of these, the Gemara says either of them could happen, and therefore you have to be cautious. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Interesting that it doesn't talk about there are three types of people who are going to inherit the world to come. Eluhein. These are they. Hadar be'eretz Yisrael. One who is living in Eretz Yisrael. V'hamagadel banav l'talmud Torah. One who raises their children to study Torah, whether that means exclusively or to just have Torah study as a priority in their lives. Either way, it's good. V'amavdil al hayayin b'motzoi Shabbos, and a person who makes havdalah over wine at the conclusion of Shabbos. Gemara asks, what is so special about the mitzvah of making havdalah on a Saturday night? The Meshayim Kedusha la'avdalto, because he is because he will have been leaving over Mikidusha Avdalta. So he will have been leaving some of his Kiddush wine over for Havdalah. So does this mean literally that it's an amazing thing to leave wine from your Kiddush over to Havdalah, or is it just the concept of taking some of that Kedusha from Shabbos and putting it into a ceremony that takes place after Shabbos? I'll leave that one to you guys to research. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Shloisha machriz aleihen hakadosh baruch hu b'chol yom. Hashem is praised by Hashem daily, each and every day. He's shouting from the rooftops about how amazing these types of people are. Who are they? Al Ravok Hadar Bekrach Ve'eno Choteh. So number one is a bachelor, single person living in a big city, and he does not sin, meaning with women. Val ani hamachazir aveda leba'aleha, a poor person who returns a lost object to its owner, even though he could have held on to it and rationalized that he's so poor and he needs it. Val asher hama'asher peirosav hama'aser peirosav betzina, and a rich person who tithes his produce betzina, doesn't make a big fuss about it. So whether that means that he's not kind of showing off his wealth, or whether that means that he's not trying to do these things publicly so that everyone thinks that he's a big tzaddik, a big righteous person. I'll leave you guys to think about maybe what that's implying. Although just thinking about it, this concept of not doing things always out in the open so that people know about it, that is definitely to get your what you're doing out there so that everyone can see what you're up to. Says the Gemara as we turn the page, Rav Safra Ravak Hadar Bakrachava. Rav Safra was a bachelor living in a city, and Tana Kame de Rava Rav Safra, and a teacher, was teaching this very message about Hashem praising a single man living in a big city where he doesn't sin. So he was teaching this before Rava and Rav Safra, and Sahavu Panav de Rav Safra. Rav Safra's face lit up as he thought to himself, Hashem praises me for what I'm like. Amalo Rava, but Rava said, Lav Kagon Mar, not really like you that this is referring to. It's not really you're not the example that the statement was trying to parallel to. Ela Kagon Rav Chanina Rav Oshia. Well, there would be a bit more like Rav Chanina and Rav Oshia. Tahavu Uchshafi Ba'aradi Yisrael, because they were cobblers, they were shoemakers in Eretz Yisrael. Vahavu Yasfe B'Shuka Dazonos, and they would sit in the marketplace, which was full of prostitutes. Va'avdi Lehu Nisane Lazonos, and they would be sitting there making shoes for them. Va'ayli Lehu, and these people would be coming into their shop, and even though they were coming into their shop, inahu mistakli bahu, they would be looking at these rabbis, ve'inahu lo midlananahu listakule bahu, and they would never lift up their eyes to look at them. So even though they are serving these people, making them shoes, and you've got no idea what kind of clientele you've got there, nonetheless they never looked up. And the zonos, these prostitutes who would come in to buy from these holy people, they were so impressed that they would praise these sages for how holy and how appropriate their conduct was. Says the Gemara, Shalosha HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ahavan. There are three types of people that Hashem loves. Number one, Misha Eino Kois, person who doesn't get angry. Umisha Eino Mishtaker. Number two, person who doesn't get drunk. Number three, Umesha Eino Mamid Al Midosav, a person who does not retaliate, a person who is very forgiving. Hashem loves these three types of people. Shlosha HaKadosh Baruch Hu Sonan. But there are three types of people that Hashem really does not like, really, really hates. Number one, Hamadaber Echad B'Peh Ve'echad B'Lev. The person who says one thing and thinks another. Number two, V'Hayodeh Eidos B'Chavero Ve'Eino Me'ed Lo. A person who knows test and help his friend out. Number three, davar erva b'chavera umeid bo yechidi. Number three is a person who sees inappropriate behavior. He sees someone having an inappropriate relationship or engaging in some forbidden or inappropriate conduct, and he does testify it, but he testifies about it on his own. And the testimony only works if you're doing it with another person. You can't actually achieve anything by testifying on these types of things alone. Ki had the Tuvia chata va'ata zigud lechude, because there was a time when Tuvia sinned, and a guy called Zigud came on his own. Va'asid bei kamei de Rav Papa, and he testified alone before Rav Papa. Nagde le Zigud, so Zigud got punished because he came to because he testified alone. Amalei Tuvia chet v'Zigud minaged. It's a big shame. Tuvia is the one that sinned, and Zigud is the one that ends up getting punished. Amalei in. He said, yes, Dichsiv, lo yakum edish echad be'ish. A person should not stand up on his own to testify against another person. Va'at l'chudach hasadas bein. That's exactly what you've done. And shame Rabba Alma kamafakas bei. You've not achieved anything other than to give this guy a bad name, a bad reputation. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak Amarav. Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rav Yitzchak, quoting Rav, Mutar l'sna'asa. It is permitted to hate such a person. Shne'emar ki tirech chamor suna'acha rovetz tachas masa'o. As it says in the pasuk, if you see the donkey of he who hates you lying under its load. So if you, the idea is that you're supposed to help this donkey. So but the point is that there's obviously someone that you hate, and the person that you hate happens to have a donkey who is struggling. My sone, what does it mean when it says that the person that you hate, ilema sone nochri, if it's about hating a non-Jew or about a non-Jew who hates you, v'hatanya, there's a brisa sone sha'amru sone Yisrael v'lo sone nochri, that there's a brisa that says that the Torah is talking about a Jew who hates, not a non-Jew who hates. Ela pshita sone Yisrael. Rather, it's obvious that we're talking about a sone Yisrael, a Jewish person who's hating. Umishar yelamasne. And so, how then are we allowed to permit? How are we allowed to hate another Jew? V'haksiv, says the pasuk, Lo susane esachicha bilvavecha. You should not hate your brother in your heart. Ela deikasa hade da'avi. Is that there are witnesses who saw something forbidden taking place, and that's what the verse is referring to when you're hating something. But then the Gemara says, okay, but then but then everybody should be hating such a person. So the Gemara asks, my shanahai, what's different about this particular person who hates him? Ela lav, rather ki haigavna dechazya be ihu davar erva. Rather, is it not referring to a case like this where you have sawn him, where you have seen him doing a davar erva, something which was not permitted. So it's where you've seen it, but not everybody knows about it. So that's the example where you could end up hating someone. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Omar. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, mitzvah l'sanaso. It is a mitzvah l'sanaso. It's a mitzvah to hate. Shene'emar yiras Hashem sonei ra. The fearers of God. The fear of God is to hate evil. So the concept again that it's okay to hate. Amar Rav Acha Barei de Rav Ashi. So Rav Acha, the son of Rava, said to Rav Ashi, Mahu lemein rale le Rabbi lemisne. So he said, what is So he says, what's the halacha of telling your teacher so that your teacher also hates the person that you saw doing the wrong thing? Amalei said back, Iyadar de meheman l'rabei kebeitre le male, v'lo lo le male. So he said that if you know that you're going to be trusted by this teacher with this information, and that he will believe what you're trying to say, and all of the other rules, so to speak, of lashon hara fulfilled, then you're allowed to say it. But if not, then you should not tell him, says the Gemara. Tana Rabbana, the sages taught. Shlosha chayehen einam chayim. There are three types of people for whom life is just not life. Who are these three types of people? Harachmanin, v'haraschanin, va'anine hadas. People who are too merciful and who get trampled on very easily. People who are angered very easily, hot-tempered, and they're because you're just walking around in a fury the whole time, you're not really getting to experience life to the fullest. Va'anine hadas, and people who translates it there as very delicate, very sensitive, that they've got OCD. They can't function because of the sensitivities that they have. Says the Gemara of Amar of Yosef, Kulahu isnahu bi. Rav Yosef confirming that indeed it's really just not life. You can't live a vibrant, easy life if you have all of these challenges to contend with as well. Continues the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Shlosha sonim zeh es zeh. Three types of people hate each other. Eluhein, haklavim, these are they. Dogs get into fights with each other very easily. Vahatar nagolin, roosters. Vahachaverin, and Persian priests, or chabarim, sorry. So all of these types of people hate each other. V'yesh omrim af hazonos, and some say also prostitutes. V'yesh omrim af talmidei chachamim shebebavel, and some say even Torah scholars in Babylonia. I don't have anything to say on that. Tana Rabbana, said the rabbis. The rabbis taught, Shlosha ohavin zeh es zeh eluhein. There are three types of people who love each other, and these are they: hagerim, people who convert. They just love everybody. Va'avadim, and slaves, and va'orvin, and ravens. Arba ein hadas sovlasan eluhein. And there are four people who cannot be understood, who cannot be endured, and these are they: dal ga'a, a poor person who is arrogant, va'ashir mechachesh, and a rich person who denies any time there's a claim of money against him, v'zakein mena'ef, a lecherous old man, ufarnas misgayer al hatzibur bechinam, and a community leader who lords over the community. So I guess somebody who is not a good leader, but just imposes their presence on everybody else for no apparent reason. V'yesh omrim, there are those who say, Af megarish es ishta pa'am rishona ushnia umachazerta. And there are some who say that a person who divorces his wife and then remarries her, and then divorces her again and remarries her, and so is taking her back for the second time, that is also included in this, and that cannot be endured. To which the Gemara asks, the Tanakama, so why wasn't this mentioned by the first person that we were quoting? Zimna de kasuvasa muraba, because sometimes the kasuba, the value of the kasuba that he has to pay, is too large and he can't afford it. Rule and say that all of these people are not nice to be around. Inami, alternatively, yesh lo banim hemena velo matzi migarishla. Alternatively, maybe they've got kids and it's just not going to be appropriate for them to separate because they need to be able to look after the children. Says the Gemara, Chamisha Devarim Tziva Kanaan Isbana. There were 5 things that Canaan, who was a descendant from Noach, there were 5 things that he instructed his sons. And what are these? Ahavu ze'ezeh, love each other, love one another, look out for one another. Va'ahavu es hagazel, love robbery. Va'ahavu es hazima, love lewdness and promiscuity. V'sanu es adonechem, hate the masters. Va'al tadabru emes, and don't tell the truth. Continues the Gemara, Shisha devarim ne'emarim basus. There are 6 things that are said about horses. Number 1, ohev es haznus. They love znus, promiscuity. Va'ohev es hamilchama. They love war. Va'rucho gasa, and their demeanor is very arrogant. Umoes es hashena. They hate sleep. Va'ochen harbe. They eat loads. Umotzi kima, and they only excrete a small amount. They even want, some say, to kill their riders and their owners in a time of war. Excuse me for just a second. Continues the Gemara. At this point, by the way, if you're following inside the page, about 10 lines up. Shiva Menudin L'Shamayim and Eluhain. There are 7 people who are ostracized, excommunicated by Hashem, and these are they. Yehudi She'ein Lo Isha, a person who does not have a wife. V'sheyesh Lo Isha Ve'en Lo Banim, a person who has a wife but has no children. U'mi sheyesh Lo Balim Ve'en Megadol L'Tav Torah, or a person who has children but does not raise them in the Torah way to learn and love the Torah. Tefillin barosha, a person who does not wear or does not have tefillin on his head, or tefillin bezroa, tefillin on his arm, that tzitzis bevigdo, and doesn't wear tzitzis, or mezuzah bepischo, and a mezuzah on his door, v'hamonea manalin meraglav, and a person who purposely walks around without shoes. Even someone who does not want to go near a gathering for the sake of a mitzvah, doesn't want to sit when people are having a sudas mitzvah, a meal on the occasion of a mitzvah. Amar Rabba bar Rachana, Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Marta, Amar Rabbi bar Marta, quoting Rav in the name of Rabbi Yossi from Hutzal. He asks, Minayin she'ein sharlin b'childayim. From where do we know that one should not consult an astrologer? Shneemar, because it says, Tamim tihiyeh im Hashem Elokecha. You should go before Hashem wholeheartedly, or you should be with Hashem wholeheartedly. Tamim. Uminayin hayod, meaning that you shouldn't then try and see things that Hashem might not have intended for us to see. Just kind of like go with the flow, have faith that everything's going to be okay, and don't start consulting with astrologers to try and figure out what the future has in store. So that's number 1. Don't take advice from astrologers. Uminayin hayodea b'chaveiro shehu gadol mimeno afilu b'davar echad shechayev linhog bo kavod. How do I know that somebody who is greater than me, even in one area, that they are deserved of respect from you? Shneemar, because it says ki kabel, because it says kol kavel di ruach yatirabe umalka ashis mahakamuse al kol malchusa, because the verse says that there was a surpassing spirit that was in him. The king thought to set him over the whole realm, which teaches us that one who is anyway greater than another is deserved of respect. V'hayosheves al dam tahor asura l'shamesh ad kama, and a person who is observing her cycle, her menstrual cycle, asura l'shamesh, you are forbidden from being intimate with her. How do ad kama? So until when is the wife and the husband forbidden to engage in intimacy? Amarav, Ona. Rav says that the answer is an ona, which is a set interval of time. One second. So it's not when they're going through their cycle, it's when they are counting the days after having given birth. Um, so, so if they give birth to a boy, then they have 40 days where they have to wait until they are tahor. And if it's a girl, then they have to wait 80 days until they're tahor. And at that time, you then have to wait a period of an onah, either one day or one night before you carry on and restart having intimate relations. Says the Gemara, Tana, who Yosef ish Hutzal. When we talk about Yosef of Hutzal, who Isi ben Gur Aryeh, who is the same person as Isi ben Gur Aryeh, who Isi ben Yehuda, he is the same person as Isi, the son of Yehuda, who Isi ben Gamliel, same person as Isi ben Gamliel, and who Isi ben Mahalalel, and he is also Isi ben Mahalalel. So he is referred to as all of these names in different places. Umashmo, what was his actual name? Isi ben Akavia. His actual name is Isi ben Akavia. Similarly, who Rabbi Yitzchak ben Tavla? Rabbi Yitzchak ben Tavla is the same person as who Rabbi Yitzchak ben Chakla. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Ilah, he is the same person as Rabbi Yitzchak ben Ilah. Who Rabbi Yitzchak ben Achaz, we turn the page to the top of Kuf Yud Daled. He is the same person as Rabbi Yitzchak ben Acha, the Shmaisa, when it comes to seeing that name mentioned in the context of Halacha. That's the same person, who Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas da Gadata. And you may see him in statements of Agadata referred to as Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas. So all of these are the same people. The Simanech, and the way to remember this is Shimuna Achaye Varaye. Achai Varayai. Listen, my brothers and my friends. So these words, Shimu sounds like Shmaisa, Na, which refers to the halacha, and Achai is similar to Acha, which we saw as well. Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Rabba Bar Chana quoting Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishmei de Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Rabbi Ilai, and we'll just take it up to the Mishnah over here. Says the Gemara, Echol batzal v'shev batzel. You should eat an onion and sit in the shade, meaning eat inexpensive food, while or just don't spend very much on food. V'lo teichel avozin v'tarnagon. Don't eat geese and chickens, which is very expensive food. V'yehei libecha rodef alecha, as your heart will pursue you, meaning that you will get a taste for the luxuries. Pachos mimichalcha mimichtecha. So he also said, don't spend as much on your food and your drink. V'tosif al dirasacha, and spend more on your house, meaning spend on things that are better investments for you rather than temporary fleeting pleasures. Ki asa ula. When Ula came from Eretz Yisrael down to Bavel, he said, Omar, matlin marava. He said there is a proverb, there is a mashal that they say in Israel, Eretz Israel, Ta'achil alisa tashi ba'alisa, that one who eats a fat tail, which is alisa, with an iron. What does that mean? So if you eat a fat tail, which is very special, then people are going to think you're very wealthy and you're going to want to hide from them. Da'achil kakuli, if you eat cress, akikli damasa shachir, then you're going to lie down in the dunghill of the town. So if you eat modest levels of food and do not engage in luxuries, and even if you were extremely rich, you would be able to lie down in the city's garbage, meaning you'd be able to walk around in any place and no one's going to disturb you. So that's the final piece of advice that we see from Ulla, or the final proverb that he quotes from the people in Eretz Yisrael. And that concludes our share for today. And that also brings us to the end of a very long piece of Gemara that's been going since the first Mishnah of the 10th chapter. And from here on in, we go through the actual process of the Seder. But that's all for today, guys. We wish you a wonderful and meaningful day, and we will see you next week for another exciting Daf Yomi page. Take care, everyone.